So in the last sutra, Patanjali was speaking that you can use the Kriya Yoga for Klesha Tanu Karnartham, for thinning out of the Kleshas, and Samadhi Bhavanarthascha, for the dawn of a transcendental kind of a state. For that, Kriya Yoga were prescribed. And then Patanjali says that you can use Kriya Yoga to thin out the Kleshas, but then further thinning of the Sukshma Kleshas can happen by meditation, by dhyana, Ekatattva Abhyasa, And then previously Patanjali has already described us what these Kleshas are. And now he gets into a very deeper dimension of the existence of the human psyche. And Patanjali says that Klesha Mulaha, Kleshas are the Mula or are the roots. For what? For Karmashaya, the reservoir of action. And then he says, Drishta, Adrushta, Janma, Vedaniyaha. And because of that, there are experiences in this life or the life that is visible to you now, the experiences that you are having in this life, or what you have not yet experienced but which are waiting for you in future. All of them are driven by the phenomena of Karmashaya, where the root of the Karmashaya is in Klesha. Now, whenever we study Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it is very important that we are able to separate the Shabda, Artha, and Jnana. We should be able to dissociate the word, the meaning of the word, and the real substance. So when you hear the word Klesha, this is a word. It means mental affliction. And previously, Patanjali has already described about it. Patanjali says that these kleshas are avidya, ignorance, asmita, false sense of I-ness, identifying myself with something with, that I am not. Then raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. These are called as klesha. They are the roots of the karmashaya. They are the roots through which the reservoir of the karma is formed. Means they are the soil, the seed, and then the tree of the karma grows. And the fruits of that are waiting for me in the present life. Currently also it is going on, and it is waiting for me in my future births also, what is seen and what is unseen. So then it becomes very, very important to understand kleshas, So now, dear friends, these are the words that you are seeing, but what is the artha behind these words? What do we actually mean by these kleshas in our day-to-day lives? Are we able to experience these kleshas? And how these kleshas are forming the karmashaya? So I want all the students of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, to apply these sutras in their life and see whether it makes any sense, rather than just getting into some kind of a theoretical jargon and debate. So it should come to your experience. Now, I would like to ask you, all the students who are here online, I would like to ask you, what do you think these kleshas are? First of all, the root of all the klesha is avidya. How Patanjali has defined avidya? Patanjali says, anitya as nitya, ashuchi as shuchi, dukkha as sukha, anatma as atmakhyati. Now, these are fundamental, deep cognitive errors. These are very deep, fundamental cognitive errors. In the whole domain of CBT, what do? They do cognitive restructuring. Now, Patanjali has given you a fundamental construct, in the cognition. And Patanjali says that if the cognition is in this sort of a construct where you are able to understand that for everything, for any situation in your life, if you are able to just look at these four domains of your cognitive structure, what I am worrying about, is it temporary or permanent? Suddenly, a kind of a insight comes to you that am I, getting bothered by something which is anyway going to change? Am I into this cognitive kind of a error that I am considering a thing which is anitya as nitya? A thing which is temporary, am I considering it as permanent? And that is why I am getting into the loop, So have you ever experienced this kind of phenomena happening? And in your day-to-day life, have you ever seen these kleshas working? Anybody would like to share their experience? Yes, please, Shreyas, unmute.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Yes.
So I would like to share my experience about Asmita. So
Yeah.
when I was working as a medical officer, everybody used to reinforce that I'm a doctor, I'm a doctor. So somewhere I attached my identity to that word, doctor. And anything that used to contradict that, I used to take it very personally. Or if somebody used to praise also, I took it personally. But later I realized that asmita of me about doctor or that medical officer is just about a position that is there in that hospital. It does not speak about who I am as a person. And as I realized that, my stress started coming down.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Shreyas, understood, that he got into this cognitive error that this word or this position of him being a medical officer, he considered it as something which is permanent aspect of his being. He identified himself with that position. So he got that word into his atma, khyati, So he started taking atma khyati or pride in that recognition, as medical officer, and considered that as a permanent part of his being, that he says that led to stress for him. Okay. I think students are there who would want to say something. Please share your views.
Sir, I want to share an experience I, as a part of data collection, I am doing VPI for opioid use disorder patients.
Yeah.
So in that questionnaire, always one question will be there. Do you think some things which give happiness now will give you sadness later, like that? So they most of them they will be tell yes, yes. While taking those opioid Tidal and all, I felt happy, but it now I am coming to know it is giving me distress.
Yes. So how do you think the klesha work there?
It is like here in this dukkha and sukha.
Okay, okay, wonderful, wonderful. So here Gautam gave us an example of what is actually a dukkha is perceived as a sukha. No? The thing is going, I feel that it is going to give me happiness, but ultimately it gives me pain. Now, my experience has been that for anything, for anything in the rush of the day, when we are very busy, when there is a certain kind of a project that is happening and you have a certain target to meet, you have to complete a certain number of sample size, you want to go somewhere, you want to rush. So there, what happens is we start considering, that this situation is very, very important for me. And if it doesn't happen, what will happen? That kind of a situation we get into, So here the kleshas work in a way that first we lose that insight, that whatever that I am going through, it is a temporary phase. It is not going to last forever. And we start considering that it is everything. If it doesn't happen, everything is going to get devastated. And then we get into what we say, the aspect that we were seeing here. From this avidya, we identify ourselves, and then comes attachment to that phenomena, and then comes the abhinivesha. So here abhinivesha is that what if, abhinivesha means what if I do not get what I want? What if I will have to go through what I don't want? So raga is sukha anushaya raga, a tendency within me to always get into a pleasurable kind of a situation. Everybody wants pleasure. And dvesha is a tendency within me to avoid a slightest of discomfort. So an attachment towards comfort, and an attachment, or we can say negative attachment towards discomfort, both of them lead to abhinivesh. So all of us have felt this abhinivesh in our life. Whenever we were in a situation where we wanted something to happen in a certain way, and it didn't happen that way. So I had a target that I will finish recruiting 100 subjects and I recruit 20. So abhinivesha comes in. I love somebody and that fellow doesn't reciprocate, and you get into a situation of abhinivesha. So these kleshas are playing within us day in and day out. And fundamentally, Patanjali says that avidya is the very root cause, where there are 4 fundamental cognitive errors that happen. First error that happens, I see somebody, I like the person, I start thinking that I am going to be with this person forever. So I see that particular solace or comfort in the relationship as lasting till infinity. But it is anitya. In its reality, it is anitya, but I consider that it is nitya. That is first fundamental cognitive error that happens. Second is, in my own thinking process, what is not pure, I start associating the idea with it, or I start imposing the idea with it that it is pure. Third thing then that happens is, it is going to give me sukha. I anticipate sukha. I start projecting in my mind lot of wonderful time that is going to come and lot of pleasurable things that are going to happen. I get into a cognitive error where I start perceiving only the positive aspect of that thing. And even if, there are glimpses of negative things that are coming in that, I tend to close my eyes towards that. And always create a bias in my mind where I do not remain objective anymore, towards what I am actually perceiving and what I want to perceive. So I want to perceive it as nitya, as ever present. I want to perceive it as pure. I want to perceive it as giving, pleasure giving. And then finally, as it gets into these kind of thinking process again and again, you can see that happens in our mind. We start imagining things where we are having pleasure out of a particular situation. We start imagining that because we want that to happen. And we start also, thinking it in terms of time, in a long stretch of time, things that we stretch on, we think that it is going to happen this way lifelong, always. So always be like this, always giving me pleasure. It is. So whatever that I get attached to, fundamentally I get attached to that particular thing because I think that it is going to give me lasting pleasure. I bought this MacBook Pro. Now, when I bought it, I had this impression that this laptop is going to stay with me forever. And this laptop is going to give me lot of pleasure, lot of comfort in my working. With that fundamental cognitive error, I bought this laptop. While buying this laptop, did I ever think that this laptop may break anytime, or maximum it is going to last for 5 years and after that it is not going to be there? No. While buying, because it is a very costly laptop, I will consider that it is going to be with me till I die. I do not even think of a situation when this is not going to be there with me. But the fact is, this laptop is not going to be with me beyond few years. Maximum it can go for 8 to 10 years. After that, it is definitely not going to be there. But this idea doesn't come to my mind when I buy this laptop. When I get into a relationship with a thing or an object or a person, I get into a fundamental cognitive error always that this thing, this object, this position, this degree is going to give me lasting pleasure. हमेशा रहने वाला सुख मुझे इससे मिलने वाला है. With this kind of a attitude or a fundamental cognitive error, we get into anything that we start in our life. And because of that, there comes the raga and dvesha. Now, I am going somewhere and this laptop slips out of my hand and falls. Okay? Or I miss my laptop back somewhere. And I'm not recollecting where I left it. I left it in my bus. I left it in the flight. And now what is going on in my mind right now? My Nitya is gone. Or I am in a fear that it is no more Nitya. So then comes the abhinivesha. I get into a state of panic. I want it. I have to search it. No, I call police. I do. So in that state of mind, what is going on within me? I am getting super constricted. I am getting into a state of abhinivesh. That is what is called as abhinivesh. So these kleshas are not an abstract concept that you have to keep repeating klesha, klesha, klesha. Feel it in your life. Feel it day in and day out. How many times this has happened with us that we got into something thinking that it will give us lasting, everlasting pleasure, and ultimately found that it is neither lasting nor pleasurable. It is actually painful. So this kind of a restructuring of the cognition, even before you get into the action, is required for you to have freedom from Karmashaya. So, yeah, I think before we proceed, let us hear out what Sophia wants to say. Sophia, you want to share something?
Yes, sir. I meant to say before.
Your voice is not going, Sophia. You have to use only one device.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to say, I don't know if it's very related anymore, but that ultimately all of it comes from the ignorance where we identify ourselves, our true selves, to be either our body or our mind. So we get attached to our thoughts, which are ever changing. They're transitioning all the time, believing something will, I mean, I think it's redundant. I'm talking about what you were saying. Something will bring us pleasure. So we attach to that thought, and eventually it might bring us pleasure, but it's temporary. So once that's gone, we're again chasing after another thing in this everlasting chain of running after these ideas of pleasure that are just momentary, and that will only cause us more pain, more suffering. So I believe it all comes from the ignorance that we are believing that ourself is our thoughts, is our body.
Yes. So this is another beautiful example. This body, all of us are completely 100% sure that it is Nitya. Who is going to die? Somebody else is going to die. I am never going to die. For all of us, in our own deep inside our own psyche, we are immortals. We cannot think that this body is not going to be there. Also, this body is pure. Ultimately, we know that it is ever in a state of flux, and it is not as pure as we think, as we see ourselves in the mirror. The name that we carry, the face that we see in the mirror, we consider that as our permanent identity. And we take pride in that. We take pride in taking care of our body, in taking care of our clothes. But as Sophia said, that these are cognitive biases which lead to ultimately abhinivesh. Abhinivesh is not only fear of death. Abhinivesh is fear of losing whatever that you are attached to, or fear of getting into a situation which you have an inherent dislike towards. So therefore, klesha as a word, klesha as a phenomena happening within you day in and day out and leading to fear in your psyche are two separate things. So if we, are able to separate the word klesha from the phenomena of klesha that keeps happening within us day in and day out, then we will be able to understand this sutra better. Klesha mulaha. Patanjali says that first, what happens? First, the kleshas spread. First, the kleshas come as the very root. Now, there is an individual who is filled with kleshas. Now, what will happen with these kleshas being there very densely? If these kleshas are there in my psyche, what will happen to my actions? All my actions that I am going to do will be colored by these kleshas. So it means I will not do anything else apart from two kinds of actions. One is moving towards what is going to give me a lasting pleasure in my own understanding. All my actions will be either in this one direction, lasting pleasure for me. So that is the motivation for me to do the action. That is one kind of action I will do. I should get recognition. I should get everlasting happiness. Those actions will motivate me, number one. Number two, the second kind of action that I will do is avoid whatever that does not give me lasting pleasure. If there is no recognition there, if there is no name there, no fame there, nothing that I can gain out of it, I am not going to take up that kind of action. I suddenly feel demotivated. It is not even in the control of that person. He simply doesn't get the motivation to do unless there is a reward that his what he thinks as Sukham, what he thinks as Atma Khyati, what he thinks as Nitya, if that is not coming for him, and whatever that is not there, where these phenomena are not involved, I do not feel motivated to do it, or even if I do it with less motivation, less interest. Has that happened with us? It happens with us. It happens with all of us. We feel more motivated if there is something for me there in that, which I think is going to give me lasting pleasure. If that is not there, it is very difficult for us to remain motivated for that kind of action. No name is coming, nobody knows that you did it, and you are doing it in complete isolation. Even if you are doing it, you are sending it to somebody else is going to get credit out of it, your name, nothing is there. Still you are doing.
Symbiotic, because you're already.
Do we feel motivated to do that kind of action? No. So have you ever felt that? Is it an experience in our life or not? No, I would like to ask you. I feel that it happens with me. So people there who are there in the meeting, what is your take on this idea that I say that most of our actions are colored by kleshas, in the way that we are always motivated to do the actions where we think that we are going to get lasting pleasure, name or fame, and we are not motivated to do the action where name, fame and pleasure are not there, or our actions are to avoid what is not going to give us these kind of rewards. So do people agree with this understanding? Yes. So we see in the chat box. So if you properly assess yourself, if you look at yourself, then you see how much percentage of my actions are colored by kleshas. Klesha means first the fundamental cognitive error, then with that error, identifying myself with what I am not, and then getting into the loop of raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, wanting something, getting fear if I don't get it, want to finish it at any cost. How much percentage of our actions that we do day in and day out do you think are colored by the kleshas? I want everybody to drop the percentage that they think that their action are colored by the kleshas. For me, it is 90%. So I request everybody to tell me how much percentage of your actions do you think are colored by these kleshas? Can you give some example of karma without kleshas? Yeah, such karmas are where you have to, there is a conference that we are organizing, you have been given a duty, and nobody knows that you are doing this kind of a work, and you are just still as motivated as you would, get a credit in front of everybody. See, there are honest people here. I see people writing 100%, 80%, 98%. I like it. I like it. At least, if you want to grow, you should be honest to yourself. Wonderful. So this is the percentage. This is the percentage that these kleshas are coloring our actions. So then, how is it that these klesha colored actions are becoming a cause for my experiences, not only in this life, but in the life which is going to come in future? How is it that these kind of karma are becoming a cause for the experiences that I am going to have in this life or in the life in future? This is the question. Patanjali is very clear. Patanjali is saying that klesha mulaha karmashaya. The reservoir of karma will only be formed if your karma are colored by the kleshas. So the more such karma happen, the more experiences are waiting for you. One is definite that you are going to get another birth, that is 100% there, as long as you are getting these kind of effervescence of kleshas which are corrupting your karmas. If it is there, be 100% sure there is next birth for you. No matter in your own mind you think how evolved I am. Okay. So next birth is waiting for you. That birth is also waiting according to your karmashaya, which is colored by the klesha. Now what is the mechanism? How is it that my future experiences are going to be decided by my klesha colored actions? This is the question. And Sophia would like to answer this. Okay, Sophia.
Sir, I had a comment regarding what we were just speaking. I do believe most of our actions are colored by the kleshas, but I also think we all do some actions just by the belief that we feel it's right. We know it's right, regardless if we will get recognition or not. Like I think we all have that, maybe in a small percentage, but it's there as well.
Yes, that is there. That's why, there is some margin that is there. So, but the question is that majority of humanity right now on this planet, in this yoga, in this time, will say that if you take the data which is there here, very small amount of data, the average goes to above 80%. So 80% of the people who are actually those kind of people who have natural inclination towards the path of yoga, who without any kind of incentive are coming to learn about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. These are people who we would consider that in the general population, these are, such kind of people maybe only 10%, who are genuinely interested in learning about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Now, among these kind of people who have interest in spirituality, the average is 80%. So you can imagine in a person who is not at all motivated into spirituality, into this kind of knowledge, this percentage would go so much more high. So now, if this is the understanding, my question to everybody here is, how is it that my klesha colored actions become the source for my experiences which are going to happen in this life or in the lives which are waiting for me in future? What is the mechanism? Anybody would like to answer this question?
So through the accumulation of karmas and karma phalas, the three types of karmas that we study about, prarabdha, sanchit, and agami, and how we, through our actions in this life, we collect some karma phalas, some get executed, and some get carried over to our next birth.
So, Soumya, I do not want to go into any kind of imagination. I just want to remain with the fact. What you told me are some more words. So, Shabda, Artha, and Jnana, we should be able to separate. Speak only what is there in your experience. Okay, Shreyas.
Yes, sir. So my experience is that if I do any activity and if I do it with more raga, then I will be expecting some feedback from it or some phala from it. Let's say I'm taking a lecture. So even if I get good or bad feedback, both I will connect it to my asmita. Like it will say good about me or bad about me. But if I honestly take the lecture and after that I say that I have done the karma and the fruits, even if they are good, yeah, I will do Ishwar Pranidhana. Even if they are bad, I will do Ishwar Pranidhana. So if I do that, I automatically get detached from the karma.
Beautiful, beautiful, Shreyas. But you did not answer my question. How does klesha colored karma become the source of my experience in this life and in future lives?
If any karma is being, if we do karma colored with klesha, it will always create burdensome baggage, and that baggage we have to carry. That is what I think.
Can you elaborate on this burdensome baggage?
I cannot say about future lives, but in current life, that thoughts, emotions, attachments we carry throughout our whole lives, and that creates a burden that doesn't allow us to experience the present.
Very good answer, Shreyas. Dr. Ram.
This asmita, when we do any karma and it attached with asmita, because asmita, that is ahankara, we say that we feel that it's permanent. We would identify because of ego as a permanent entity, and this chitta on the plane of dynamic, and we know on the plane of this dynamic changing world, this we assume that I exist is a permanent. And when the asmita, ahankara, and change in the prakriti in the form of action and its effect, when related to asmita, it gives us the feeling of permanency, or any effect is related with that asmita chitta. That's maybe the thing, and this is nothing but these we can say that birth and rebirth. This is again to see, understand birth and rebirth. Before this, we can understand that okay, there may be birth or rebirth, but this gives a permanent, impermanent as a permanent thing, then it's again it gives a feeling of future, past and present.
So Dr. Ram, is able to, I think he's trying to say that the strengthening of the asmita, that becomes the major factor here, which decides the experiences. Soumya?
So your question is that how the kleshas are coloring our actions, right?
No, my question is how klesha colored actions become the source of my experiences in this life and in future lives.
So kleshad colored actions, we like everything else in our life, sukha prapti, dukha nivritti. So whatever kleshad colored actions we carry out, we just bifurcate them in either ragas or dveshas. So doesn't that determine our future experiences?
How?
Because if something is causing me pleasure, then I will continue it, and I will continue to carry that action out. But if something is causing me dukkha, then I will, or if I have a dvesha towards something, then I will actively try to avoid it in the future.
So in that way, it will decide the direction of my life.
Yes.
Okay. So anybody else, dear friends, any other views? I
Sir,
think all of you are
sir,
clear with the question. Yeah, Parag sir, yes.
sir, I feel when we go through the kleshas, we get this colored sort of spectacles where we see every thing in our own colored way in future, and that coloring will give us will change our perception, and so the reality is not seen by us. So I think this is the cause of suffering in future also.
Beautiful, beautiful, Parag sir. No, I expected something like this only from you. Very learned person. So, my experiences depend on what I perceive. My perception depends on what kind of coloring is there, in my chitta. So, even if, good things are happening around me, because of the coloring of my chitta through a certain kind of karma that I have done, colored with klesha. So another thing we have to understand here is the kleshas color the actions. Now, I get a desire, that I should get a new mobile phone. I should get a new mobile phone. I got a desire for a phone. Now, this comes first in my mind in the form of a desire, in the form of a thought. Now, this thought is colored by a klesha, that there is an attachment that I want something, and when I think why I want a phone or why I want an iPhone, immediately the thing that comes in my mind is when I will hold it in my hand, people will see that what a wonderful phone this fellow has, and I will be able to, flash my phone in front of people around. And so it is more less for my own thinking, the need, that I am going to talk on it, or my voice, it will be clear, or this less for that, but more it is, I am purchasing this phone because I want to show it to people around. Now, with this kind of a klesha, a thought comes to me that I don't want any other phone. I want only iPhone, and I want only iPhone 15 Pro Max. So, okay, this initially came in my mind in the form of a thought. Now, I see people around me, this fellow is using which phone, that fellow is using which phone. And the more I see people around me doing that, I get into, more and more kind of a thinking process or attachment that I want it more strongly now, so I slowly, over a period of time, start identifying myself more and more with that phone being with me. It becomes a part of my identity. I develop intense raga towards it. And then I start putting my actions in those directions. So, okay, I am now, initially, it was dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. Initially, I was just thinking about the pleasure, about the sense organ pleasure that I am going to get. Again and again, thinking. What has happened? Sanghasteshu upajayate. Then there became a more stronger attachment. Initially, it was just a thought. I saw somebody. But then this process continued in my mind more and more. Whenever I am free, I am only thinking about that. And then I start imagining. Sanghata sanjayate kamaha. I start imagining myself that I am holding a phone in my hand, I am talking with it, I am using it. I play those imageries in my mind again and again. This all happens unknowingly. No, initially as a thought, then those thoughts become more intense, and after that I start playing a scenario, a scene in my mind again and again. Sanghata sanjayate kamaha, and then what happens? I initiate an action towards the object. So from the klesha, which was initially only in the form of a thought, it became a sangha, which became more attached. Then it became kama. Kama means now comes a sankalpa in it. Now, sankalpa is, I want it at any cost. I am 100% definitely sure I want it. And then, when does the sankalpa becomes the dhrida sankalpa? I cannot live without it. So from a casual thinking process of seeing somebody, and developing a liking towards it, we reach a state where I can't live without it. I like it to I can't live without it. What has happened in between these 2 points? So what has happened is that the deeper kleshas, so this is not for the first time that I got attached to a certain thing. I have got attached to many such things in this life previously. It is not for the first time that I have got into a relationship. Many a time in this particular life previously I have got into a relationship, and many a times in my many previous lives I have got into a relationship. Now all the kleshas of all the attachments of all the lives that are there till now, because there is a conducive atmosphere for that particular thought process, for that particular klesha to manifest, all of them will come together and it will make my sankalpa drud. See, if you want to make a wall, initially you just put bricks, then you put cement, after that you put water, after that you put sunlight, then the wall becomes quite strong. So here, from a initial just thinking process of a gentle liking, it becomes a concrete wall of desire which cannot shake. So that putting bricks, applying cement, putting water, all that thing came from where? It is my own deeper kleshas which keep coming forward, which has happened before. And just the object of the kleshas, of the raga, of the attachment changes, but the phenomena remains the same. So please understand that we in our own psyche strengthen this day in and day out. We may not be aware of it. It may be a automated program that goes on in our psyche because we are not just aware of it. But like, you have to do abhyasa, you do mantra japa, you do mantra chanting and do lot of abhyasa, or you practice anything, to get mastery over it and make it go deep into your mind. When we were small, we used to again and again repeat the mathematics, the tables, 2, 4, 6, 12, the tables that we used to repeat in our mind again and again, so that whenever, we want to remember it, we should be able to tell it. So to strengthen that smriti, that memory in our mind, what we did was we again and again got into our mental surface, repeated it. Here, to repeat something again and again in our mind, it requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of intensity. It requires a lot of force and direction. So from where does this energy, force and direction to repeat a thought of my raga in my mind again and again come from? So from a mild liking towards something, we reach a state that I can't live without it. In these two processes, we have unknowingly done lot of abhyasa. Satu dirghakala nairantarya satkara sevito drudha bhumihi. Drudha bhumi does not happen just in a day. For drudha bhumi, for a wall to be created, it requires long-term, nirantar, continuous thinking process that has to go on. So here, the problem with us is that the avidya, the forces of avidya are so strong that if you are not self-aware, then they by default do their own abhyasa of dirghakala, nairantarya, satkara, sevito, drudbhumi, of whatever that you have developed raga towards. And it is a anti-abhyasa that happens towards avidya, towards klesha. So that is why the whole science of yoga is to first become aware of this default mode, which tries to create abhyasa, which is against yoga, and create a wall of that. So with this wall being created in your psyche of your desire. Drudha sankalpa. What you do? Now you are sure you can't live without it. It means you want it at any cost. So you will sacrifice everything that you have for that, what you want. So therefore, you will initiate an action to possess. Now you are initiating an action to possess. If it is just a mobile phone, I will start thinking about from where to get the money. Now it is out of my budget. What I can afford is 30,000, but the mobile costs 1.5 lakhs. So I will find out other ways through which I should be able to get this much amount. Now, when I go to find out other ways, to get this amount to get my mobile phone, in that I initiate other karmas, which are fundamentally driven by this klesha of my attachment towards the phone. Now, this is just an example, attachment towards a person, attachment towards a thing, attachment towards a position, a degree, anything. I initiate the actions. If it cannot smoothly happen the way it goes, then I want to go through different paths. No, I don't care whether I am following dharma or adharma, righteous or unrighteous, because now I am locked up. I want it at any cost. So through this klesha becoming the driving force, now the karma is driven like a motor. Now you cannot say that you are able to do the karma with any kind of awareness. This karma is happening on an automated mode. Now, when this way the karma starts happening, then what happens? Whatever I do, it is already predetermined. If there is a bone, dog has to jump. The dog does not have any freedom of saying that I am self-aware, that I know that I have this deep, intense klesha that I, do not want a bone. I don't want to jump into it. So you will become more and more automated like an animal, more socialized, more sophisticated, kind of an animal. Wherever reward comes, you will jump. Wherever it is not there, you will not do. So in this way, when all the actions intensely start becoming colored by the kleshas, then what will happen? Slight deviation towards what I don't want will become a source of suffering for me. So I will experience this right now, and little bit of thing that goes in the direction that I want, or I achieve what I wanted, it leads to a lot of harsha for me. So I get into harsha and shoka. Harsha is sudden bout of intense pleasure. Shoka is sudden intense emotion of extreme sadness. I will keep tossing between these two. Harsha, shoka. Harsha, shoka. Shoka, harsha. Only this phenomena will keep on happening within my psyche, irrespective of what kind of situations life is bringing to me. So in this way, my karma that I do driven by the klesha. And another thing is, when you do a karma completely colored by the klesha, that itself creates its own subconscious impression for the kleshas to come again in future. So while doing a karma also, it is not only that before doing the karma, the kleshas come. While doing the karma colored with klesha, you again strengthen the deeper kleshas. So one part of your karma gives a deep impression into your subconscious mind and strengthens your raga, strengthens your avidya. With avidya getting more concretized, your future karma are more colored by the kleshas. With more such karma which are colored by the kleshas, the part of that karma again strengthens the impressions in my mind. So I get into a loop. Jaganya guna vrittistaha adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdhvam gachanti satvasthaha madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Jaganya guna vritti. This is another vritti. Vritti means a circle. You get into a vicious cycle. of initiating a karma colored by the klesha, then because of that karma colored with klesha, generating more klesha in the subconscious mind, concretizing your avidya, which is giving you more effervescence of kleshas, which is driving more karmas filled with klesha, which is further strengthening more kleshas. So one who gets into this kind of a loop, gets into a cycle where avidya is strengthened more and more and more and more. With more and more avidya getting strengthened, then what happens? If avidya gets more and more strengthened, I get into a kind of a cognitive structure where every small ephemeral thing to me appears to me to be permanent. This phone is permanent, this laptop is permanent, this shirt is permanent. I will not be able to throw away any useless thing that I don't need. I will develop hoarding disorder. So even a very small useless thing, a piece of paper, an envelope, which I am not going to use it, I will not be able to throw it. My mind will say, no, it will be useful in future at some time. I will dump it. My whole house will become a dumping ground. I will not be in a position to give anything to anybody, even if it is not useful to me. Why? Because my avidya has become so strong that for me, everything appears permanent. Everything is going to be useful to me. Then my mind will also lose the ability to differentiate what is pure and what is impure. So all the, the filth will start appearing important to me, whether it is mental or it is physical around me. So filth will accumulate more. In the same way, I will start thinking that everything is going to give me pleasure, So even if you are a millionaire, it will not be possible for you to give $1 or 10 rupee to somebody, because you will think that this is going to give me sukha, so I want it. And then what will happen? Whatever material, whatever things that I possess, that are there, that I think that are permanent, I identify very strongly with them. Even if, a small part of it is removed or it is changing, it will give me dukkha, it will give me shoka. So in that way, all the situations that are going to come in my life are going to be colored by my kleshas. So then Patanjali says, Sati mule tad vipako jati ayu bhogaha. Till this root exists, till this root. So when I say the root is klesha. When I say the klesha, the root of all the kleshas is avidya. And avidya, whenever you say avidya, you have to think of this cognitive structuring with 4 walls. Wall number one is thinking impermanent as permanent. Wall number 2, thinking impure as pure. Wall number 3, thinking what is actually painful to be pleasurable. And wall number 4, thinking what is not me as me and taking pride in it. These 4 things, if this wall is there, this structure is there in the depth, then the fruition will keep happening and lead to jati, ayu and bhogaha. Jati means what kind of body I am going to get. Physically also this body will change. The more the kleshas are there in the psyche, the more the actions are constricted, the more your pranic energy will get constricted, your chakras will get constricted, and you will see that it will start manifesting in the form of the disorders, which manifest in the form of constriction of the channels in the body. So it will either, it can lead to atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, it can lead to hypertension, it can lead to irritable bowel syndrome, it can lead to constipation, it can lead. So ultimately, with avidya, with kleshas, your vision, your ability to perceive will become constricted. You will get into the bouts of intense harsha and shoka more intensely. So what it will do is the pranic structure also will intensely contract and intensely expand. So it will slowly, you call it as autonomic dysfunction that sets in chronic diabetes and all. The autonomic nervous system, when the sugar levels are too high, it gets into a kind of a parasympathetic activity. When sugar levels are too low, there is too much of sympathetic activity. So a person who has diabetes, where there is a lot of fluctuation of the sugar levels in him, the autonomic nervous system keeps on tossing between very high sympathetic activity to very high parasympathetic activity, sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. By doing that continuously, what happens is his autonomic nervous system becomes more and more insensitive and dysfunctional. Then the situation where the autonomic nervous system has to respond, it doesn't respond. These people develop silent MIs. So here, in the same way, when psychologically you are putting yourself into extreme pleasure and extreme sadness again and again, slowly, you see that the channels that govern the thinking process in your mind become loosened. And then you get into a kind of a disorder where the thought processes are no more streamlined. So the OCD kind of thinking process starts coming, where thought goes in one direction and doesn't come back into its natural track. Or you start getting into anxiety or depression or bipolar affective disorder or even psychosis. So fundamentally what is happening is the repeated jolts of intense pleasure and intense pain, sadness and happiness are loosening up the manovaha shrotas, the channels through which the thought moves. And that is how then what kind of pranic structure that you have developed because of that thinking process, your body starts taking that kind of a shape. And then if the pranic structure is too constricted, too dense, then probably when you leave this body and the pranic body, the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body and has to take another body, then it takes the body according to the pranic structure that left the body. So a person who is too constricted, too much into possessing things, or does not want to give up anything, or into too much of eating, or any kind of disorder that can develop based on the kleshas and samskaras, will then, take up that particular kind of a body, which helps him fulfill those kleshas even further. So I may leave the human body and then get into a body of a bear, a bear who wants to eat for 6 months, sleep for 6 months, or then further getting more and more constricted. Jaghanya guna vritti, they keep on going into the adholokas, they say. So it is in this way that Patanjali says that your whatever kleshas are there, their fruition will happen in the form of impression that gets onto your psyche. From the impression on your psyche, there are impressions on your pranic body. From the impression on your pranic body, there is a change in the flow of your pranic structure. So the higher chakras get less activated, the lower chakra get more activated. And in that way, you then select that particular kind of a body with those activities of the chakra and those kind of experiences that keep coming in this life or in future life. So that is what Patanjali says later. Te ahallad paritap phalaha punya apunya hetutvat. So this is what I was talking, harsha and shoka. Ahallada means intense bout of pleasure. Paritapa means intense bout of sadness. This kind of phala will come. Phala of what? Phala of jati, ayu and bhoga. Whatever is going to be your lifespan, that is decided by your pranic structure. What body that you are going to take is decided by your pranic structure. and then bhoga, what kind of experiences that you are going to get out of the situation that you face, that also is decided by the cognitive or perception that you have. So ahallad paritapa phalaha, it will make you go through ahallada or paritapa based on whether punya apunya hetutvat, whether in the karma there was punya. Punya means when the karma are not colored by the klesha, or they are covered by the klesha in a way that it leads to what you can say, the karma are colored in such a way that you get more attached to certain thing, and you get the reward out of it, where you are not harming anybody, but you have attachment towards your atma khyati, then it is punya. Whereas apunya is when for the pleasure person even starts harming others, But in both punya and apunya, the raga or dvesha, those kind of kleshas keep playing a role. Even if one does good to something with a desire that something good should happen to me, then that also is colored klesha, but less intense. Whereas when I do bad to somebody with a desire that something good should happen to me, then it is apunya. So all this lead to ahallada and paritapa phalaha. Okay, so with this we complete this discussion today about how the kleshas become the source of my experiences in this life and the life in future. So if there are any questions, sir, while trying to follow these and trying to do karma without klesha, is there a possibility that a person might be seen as unsuccessful in terms of other parameters for success, but it should not disturb him, I suppose? Good question. Dr. Rama has asked a very good question. So anybody would like to share their views? Dr. Rama has asked, if I do not do karma, if I want to do karma without kleshas, will I not be considered as an unsuccessful person? So the question is whether we should do our karma with this motivation or not. Anybody? Any other view, any answer that you can think of? If I do karma without klesha, will I be considered as an unsuccessful person? Yeah, Dr. Ram?
Yeah, thing is that if we do not, what is the other thing or intention for to be in action? So action depend on nyaya dharma satya, truth, gyan, and understanding the which actually defines your role in a society as you perceive in a present moment as it's actually not a desire but need. You understand as a need of the society, need of yourself, and based on that and depend on the nyaya dharma satya, you take action. It leads to a more better outcome, and this better outcome in a is nothing but success in higher values.
So Dr. Ram is talking about putting your focus on higher values of life rather than material success, and think that you are successful in that domain rather than this domain. But my question is, what if people also want to be successful in material domain as well as the higher value domain? I do not want to, remain unsuccessful. But at the same time, I also do not want to color my actions by these kleshas, because ultimately that leads to suffering. So is there a way out? Shreyas, yes.
Yes, sir. So what I think is that when there are less kleshas, there is actually more opportunity to be successful, because you're thinking more clearly, you're acting more clearly, and you're perceiving more clearly.
Very beautiful, very beautiful. So because of my fear, many a times I do not take up things which I would have taken if there was less klesha in my mind. If my mind was more clear, I would have perceived things in a better way, and I would have. So generally, my observation is that in the beginning, when we start this kind of a thinking process, it appears to us that people who do not want to do the action, looking towards the reward of the action, will be less skillful, or they will be less competent in doing those actions. But there can be a motivation which does not lead to formation of klesha, but still maintains a good quality of action, and that motivation has been described in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita says that the karma that are done only toward looking at the fruit of the karma are considered as the lowest quality of the karma. The lowest quality of the action is that action which is only done towards the fruit of the action. But there is another way of doing the action. Second important thing is, at any moment of time, I am not going to be without action. Nahi kaschid kshanam api jatu tishtatya akarmakrit karyate yavashah karma sarvah prakriti jairgunehe. At any moment of time, we think that we will be able to stop our action or not to do it, but the forces of the nature are going to force us to do the action. And what kind of action? The same action that you have a desire to do while looking at the fruit of the action, the same action will come through you, even if you do not look at the fruit. Why? Because it is your natural tendency to act that way. So I want to become a researcher. There is an inherent tendency in me to become a researcher. I want to become a clinician. There is an inherent tendency within me to become a clinician. So this inherent tendency in me that wants to manifest itself, we perceive it as if this tendency is coming because because I have developed a desire to be a clinician, or because when I become a clinician, I am going to grow so much, or I am going to get this much name and fame. No, it is not like that. The drive that is there within us is actually independent of the result. And in fact, if we do not suffocate this drive by intense pressure of achieving what we want, this drive can flow more freely, and you can get into a flow state in your actions. A psychologist, Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, spoke about this flow psychology. He says that when does a person get into a state of flow? A person never gets into a state of flow if the person is anxious about the results. Person gets into the state of the flow if the person has prepared adequately, but in the moment, the person is able to perform it, not looking at the fruit, but being in the moment completely. When my preparation matches the challenge, and when my mind is actually completely in the present moment, in the present action, it is only then that I get into a state of flow. And when I get into a state of flow, I perform the action in the best possible skillful way. So what is the motivation to do the action? The drive to do the action in the present moment itself is the motivation to do the action. The joy of action is the motivation to do the action, not the result of the action. So when you are sitting in your clinic, your only thing that you are seeing the patient is for the joy of seeing the patient, for the joy of being a doctor, for the joy of being a psychologist. You just tell yourself that I do this karma because this is my dharma, that this is the inner drive that I have, and I want to surrender to this drive, and I don't want to narrow my drive down for the result of the action. By this way, you will see that you will do much more karmas. You will be able to do multitasking. You will be able to come out of one task and go into another task very quickly, because you are not attached to the result of this task or to the result of that task. So that's why we see that people who understand these intricacies of the karma actually become more active. They are able to remain more at peace and at rest. Because what happens is, when you do actions looking at the result of the actions, whenever there is slight deviation, the result are not coming your way, you spend a lot of energy in regretting things or worrying about the results, and that energy that you spend do not allow you to do more actions. So therefore, doing the action for the sake of the action, because there is a joy in doing the action, because that action comes from your inner drive. Whenever you do any action that comes from your inner drive, it gives you joy. Have you ever seen a small child playing? Child plays with clay. That play of a child is not in any way associated with the reward of playing. He is not going to get any reward by making a nice house or a nice, with clay. He's not worried about making a very nice structure, or somebody is going to come and praise the child. He's completely engrossed in playing with the clay, because there is a joy of that play itself. And in that joy, he will be able to make a unique kind of a thing. So in this way, your actions, I agree, they may not fulfill the criteria of success as defined by society, but it will definitely fulfill the criteria of success if success is inner satisfaction and your ability to manifest your creative potential. So you may appear little, a kind of a fellow who is little out of track, but you will be able to live a more fulfilled and successful life in that sense. Whereas if you are in a race, if you want to leave people behind and want to reach at the top, if that is the goal, then this is not the path. Then better go with Kleshas, suffer, but reach the top. So it is our choice. Our goal is our satisfaction and manifestation of our potential, or our goal is that we want to leave people behind us. Then it is in this way that we have the freedom to channelize our life and live. We should contemplate on this. I hope, Dr. Rama, I tried to answer your question. Does it answer your question? Anybody else? Any other? Okay, so Dr. Rama has written. It is very helpful. These are very fundamental concepts, and we should be open. Anybody, you should ask deeper questions. You should not fear, because it is then only that we will also get insights. We do not claim that we know everything. We don't know. So it is mutual learning for all of us, where we want to discuss. So anybody, after what I told, if you are getting any question, I request you to please ask that.
Hello.
Yes, Ram.
Sir, I want to first you give very beautiful explanation, clarity. So I feel very grateful, thankful, and very thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Ram. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then we will end the session now. We will meet again next week.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.